Xi Jinping was born into a country of war and revolution on June 15, 1953. His father was a Communist Party hero, a right-hand man of Mao Zedong. Xi is party royalty, what is in China called a princeling, but as he prefers, a man of the people.
我很自豪啊，自己能够出生在一个革命家庭里面，家庭有这个很严格的革命传统教育，总是讲说这孩子们不要放到温室里啊，是吧？大风大浪。
When he was a boy, his country was starving. The Great Famine that began in the late 1950s is estimated to have killed more than 30 million people. By his teens, China was in the grip of the Cultural Revolution, as Mao set loose his Red Guards to drive out his enemies. Xi's father was purged, something Xi would not forget. 16-year-old Xi Jinping was one of a generation of urban Chinese youth Mao banished to live among the rural poor. Xi was sent to Shanxi province in northwest China.
When he initially went out to the countryside, he was scared, frightened, to use a Western vernacular, freaked out by what was happening. In other words, his political family was under threat and in fact were being marginalised.
This is where Xi Jinping built his myth, sleeping in a cave carved from the hillside and working alongside peasant farmers, a story he's promoted time and again.
那真是叫接受贫下中农再教育啊，试图着去跟他融入、接近、了解他们。
Xi Jinping was elected president in 2012, forming the next great link in the chain after Chairman Mao and the man who kick-started China's economic revolution, Deng Xiaoping.
There's a saying in China that Mao made the country one, Deng made the country rich, Xi is making the country strong. This is the third revolution, as it were.
Xi Jinping revealed his vision for China, what he called the China Dream. What Mao started, he would finish. The final stage of the revolution, to return China to the apex of global power.
我以为实现中华民族的伟大复兴，就是中华民族近代最伟大的中国梦。
When we first heard China Dream, a lot of us thought it was going to be a lot like the American Dream, which is basically a very individualist vision of having a lot of material prosperity, a lot of freedom to do what you want, and living as a citizen in a powerful state, but one that doesn't intrude too much. So that was the American Dream. And the China Dream, I think people initially thought that that was being offered, but it's become very clear that what Xi means by a China Dream is really a state, a Chinese state dream. It's not an individual dream. It's not a dream for citizens. It's a vision of a state, a Chinese state that's very strong, that's internationally respected, that can throw its weight around internationally if it needs to, and that is in no way inferior to anybody else.
As president, Xi Jinping moved quickly to consolidate his hold on the party and the country.
The moment he came into power, it was pedal to the metal, if you like. He accelerated on all fronts to eliminate dissent, to eliminate rivals, to eliminate corruption. Now, his family had been involved in lots of deals as well. That's been well documented. There was nothing that made Chinese people more angry than seeing officials around them, be it in a township, city, province, wherever, high on the hog, getting rich. And frankly, getting rich in very nefarious ways. Stealing farmers' land, getting cuts of deals, promoting their relatives, etc., etc. China was very corrupt. It probably still is, not like it was. And so Xi Jinping used the anti-corruption campaign both as a populist measure and to purge his rivals.
Xi widened the net, locking up dissidents, lawyers, writers, and artists.
I remember back
When Xi Jinping was first elevated as a leader, there was actually quite a lot of expectation placed on Xi Jinping. We are seeing a turning more towards authoritarianism under Xi Jinping. He has centralized the power around him. And also, we're also seeing that there's increased concerns about human rights in China as well, in Hong Kong with regards to pro-democracy activists and legislators, and in Xinjiang with regards to what the Chinese government has been doing to Uyghurs and other ethnic minority groups.
What we didn't see, except for a very small handful of close observers, is that Xi Jinping wasn't the great liberator. He wasn't going to be the man who would continue the liberalising trend. In fact, he was exactly the opposite.
In 2018, Xi made a dramatic power grab that shocked China and the world. He would now effectively be president for life.
I think that came as quite a surprise to many people, because the presidential term limit was set precisely because Mao Zedong's rule that those mistakes will not happen again. But then it was removed, seemingly paving way for one person to have a lot of power around himself, which means that potentially that could create a problem for the Chinese Communist Party. So that is a problem the Chinese Communist Party obviously recognized itself before. But now it has been completely removed, and it is, I think, quite shocking to a lot of people, even inside China as well.
President Xi Jinping is now the paramount leader of China. He's the president of the People's Republic of China. He's the general secretary of the Communist Party of China, and he's the chairman of the Central Military Commission. So he's vested with the most important powers for China as a government leader, military leader, and party leader.
He's declared himself chairman for life. I call him chairman of everything, chairman of everywhere, chairman of everyone.
The president for life enshrined his name and doctrine in the Constitution. Xi Jinping thought became the guidebook to propel the country into its new era.
I think Xi Jinping thought says that the party rules all, and that China is on a path to inevitable greatness, and that everybody better get used to that.
Under the guidance of Xi Jinping, thought on socialism with Chinese characteristics for a new era, the PLA has thoroughly implemented Xi Jinping thought on strengthening the military.
Xi Jinping is building a military as powerful as his economic might. Officially, he spends around $250 billion a year on defence. Others estimate the real figure may be double that. Images of his battle-ready troops are pumped out for international and domestic consumption.
Certainly in China, this sense of nationalism has channeled this sense of resentment and this sense of past humiliation, which funnels a sort of aggressive nationalism.
Xi has drawn battle lines across the region. Chinese and Indian troops clashed on their border last year with casualties on both sides. For Xi Jinping, it was a propaganda coup.
这些英雄的边防官兵，把青春、鲜血乃至生命留在喀拉昆仑高原。
Then there is the South China Sea, where the US and China stare each other down.
Foreign military aircraft, this is Chinese Navy. You are approaching our military alert zone. Leave immediately in order to avoid misjudgment.
I am a United States military aircraft conducting lawful military activities outside national airspace.
Xi Jinping has ignored international court rulings and built military installations on disputed islands.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 vehicles moving.
China in the Indo-Pacific is a reality. For the US being here, it's a choice. China knows that, and over time, I think China wants to make the price the US pays for that to go up. And in many respects, I think China is a much more predictable player here. You know, China wants to dominate the region. China wants to be the most powerful country in the region. China wants its military to be their sort of, biggest in the region and the like. That's just obvious. Any country would want to do that of China's size, be it a communist party or a a democracy.
In Hong Kong, Xi has shown the world how ruthless he can be. He has crushed protest and introduced new laws, putting a stranglehold on the former British territory. Hong Kong stands as a warning to Taiwan.
Absolutely central to Chinese modernization, Xi Jinping's program is restoring China's territorial integrity. This is a big deal. That means Taiwan comes back, and if you think about it, regaining control of Taiwan, a self-governing island of about 25 million people, a very modern society, most importantly democratic, which does not think of itself as part of the People's Republic of China, which has run itself for, 70, 80 years, which has had an independent streak since the 19th century. China says we're going to control that, and I think Xi wants to do it on his watch.
And Xi declares he will regain Taiwan, even if it means war.
我们不承诺放弃使用武力，保留采取一切必要措施的选项。
China has ramped up threatening military exercises near Taiwan. If Xi attacks Taiwan, he could trigger a war with the United States, potentially dragging in Australia.
I think if there were a war, it would be insane. I think you couldn't be confident that if a war developed over Taiwan, and even if it began as a small war, that it could expand into a larger war, and that once you get up the escalation ladder in a larger war, that even nuclear weapons might become, part of the conflict.
If any armed conflict breaks out between China and the United States, it will be catastrophe for mankind. It may become an Armageddon for humankind.
For Western democracies, the battle lines are already drawn. Can we live in a world where the dominant economic power and all of the other power that comes with that is one that fundamentally rejects the values of our society?
Well, we can live in that world, but it's going to be a much less comfortable world. And it's going to be one in which we'll have, terms dictated to us more than we have them dictated to us now. Now, that doesn't mean China gets its way, but it means that China is much more difficult to deal with and might get its way on a lot of things. So, yeah, life's going to get harder for us.
If all you're doing is sitting around and feeling upset or fearful or angry that China is bigger and more powerful, then you've put us on a very dangerous spiral, I feel. And that's something that worries me, not only as an observer, but also as a citizen of the United States, and also as a person, who doesn't want the world to go to hell.
Everything in Xi Jinping's life has led him to this point. He rules his country like an emperor. His China dream is within reach, and he's warning the West, if they try to stop him, they'll pay.
Some days I think the battle is over and China's influence is now so great, and Xi Jinping and the Chinese Communist Party are so determined to become the dominant hegemon in the world that there's nothing we can do. But really, we can't give up like that. I mean, when you think of what's at stake, when you think of the freedoms that we on a daily basis take for granted and enjoy,